In this tutorial, we're going to build on some of the skills that we've been previously looking at, and coming from just basic keyframing, we're going to look at how we can apply some more of the principles of animation. So looking at this kind of basic city build animation that could be part of a logo or an animated video, with some basic effects and some principles of animation applied, you can see how much this can be improved. So we've covered so far how to mask and use the pen tool, but not actually how you create shapes. I'm just going to go over quickly how I actually made this. So I just found this file online and then simply created a new composition and added in this kind of background PNG, and I just traced the outlines of this kind of little bit of graphic design that I found. So I just dropped that in and then basically made different shapes for every color group. So this is important. So when you select the pen tool and you're not on a layer, unlike we were doing before in masking, we select the pen tool, but we're not on a layer. You can see at the top there it says fill and stroke, and that's because it's going to create a shape with a fill and a stroke. So as we start to create this and go through the outline of this shape here, so we start to outline this shape here, you can see it's going to start to make that red fill. So after we've traced this through, we're then obviously just going to change the color to the pink, just using the eyedropper, and that will give us our first basic shape. So you can see there we've got our first shape. With that shape layer selected, if we click away from the original shape and still with the pen tool active, we can create another shape, and it will be housed in the contents tab of there. You can see you've got the path, stroke and fill of that shape number 1. If we click away and create a second one, say this little square, this one down here, you'll see it will create a second shape within that layer. So each of these have their own properties that you can then go in and manipulate. However, I wanted to make a different color or house a different group of shapes. I then just make sure I've got no layers selected, come back into my pen tool and say let's just make this blue one here, and you'll see I've got a second shape layer that will be housing any of the blue shapes if I make it within that layer. So it's easy as that, and that's how I made the first section of the animation. The file that you're using already has the basic animation applied. We're just going to go in and look at how we added in the kind of effects and bouncing, because we've already gone through basic keyframing. So if we open our After Effects file and just go into the cityscape composition, I'm just going to turn off all the layers apart from one color. So we're going to work with turquoise and just focus on that. So in our shapes, we've got both our shapes there, and you can see we're just going to, at this moment in time, focus on the one that's falling down. So in here you can see you've got the positional data which has been affected. So we're going to add a bounce to this as it's coming down from the top of the composition, so as if it's like hitting the floor and bouncing in. So to create this bounce, I'm just going to add 4 keyframes that are equally spaced apart, and then individually change the bounce on the first one in and the third one in. So the first one in will be about 10, and then the third one in will be about 5. And then to make this bounce look a little bit more natural, we're just going to highlight the 4 keyframes and go to the keyframe assistant and hit easy ease to ease them both in and out at that point, and it should look a bit more bouncy. There we are. So now we've got that dropping down and giving that nice soft bounce. Now to get a similar bouncing look on our second shape in this layer, we're just going to come in and it actually scales in. So we're going to actually bounce on the scale when it hits the end point. So it's scaled all the way up and then just zooms in past, as if it's past the camera. So we're just now going to create another 4 keyframes, a couple frames apart from each other, and then do exactly the same thing. You just create a little bounce as it kind of hits the surface, but done with scale this time. We can have a look at how that looks. So that looks alright. So we're just going to add some easing to those frames again using our keyframe assistant, and you can see that comes in and bounces nicely. If we look back at our final result though, you can see that I've also added a very basic kind of fading effect on any of the objects that come past the camera, and I think that just helps sell it as if it's kind of zooming past you. So to do this I use the radial fast blur effect and then just keyframe that in for when I needed it. And because these are in the same shape layer, when you apply that effect it's going to affect everything in it. So both shapes will be hit with the fast blur. So you can see it affecting it now, and you've got that kind of blurry, kind of dreamy effect as it's. So you can see it affecting now, and it's giving those kind of streaks as if it's rushing past you. So if we go into the effect now, we can have a look at exactly how much we want that effect to be applied. And we only want it really as it goes past, and probably to end just before it hits the kind of ground or floor, so that it doesn't affect that other shape as well. So I just make an endpoint keyframe so I know exactly when it finishes it will be at 0, and then I can up the starting point to whatever I think looks good. And when you're happy with your keyframe placement, you should get that nice kind of speeding effect. So we can then go through and then kind of copy and paste these effects over to the rest of our animation, and you'll get your final comp that it should look something like this. So again, just with some retiming and some bounces, you can really help sell this kind of logo style animation.